saying.
Salama fams, Salama, how y'all doing today? Hope you're blessed and highly favored. I want to know who's out there ready for the second Exodus. If you're ready for the second Exodus, give me a 1. I'm ready for the second Exodus. I don't want to wait another day. I don't want to wait another second. I'm ready for the second Exodus. Now, the thing is, today, we're going to talk about what Yakoba sees in terms of where true Jerusalem is. And I'm going to have to say it like this, okay? I'm convinced, okay? I'm not going to say 100% because I'm not going to say 100% until I'm in the land with my feet on the soil, brought back by the Most High. But am I convinced that the area in Ethiopia is the real Jerusalem? Yes, I am. I'm convinced. Now, the question is, Yakoba, why are you convinced? Why are you convinced? Well, this is for all of those who are researchers, those who don't do the casual drive-bys and say, oh, what's going on here today? No, this is for the ones who go in and look at the evidence. Because a lot of people don't know what I've talked about. They don't know what milestones I'm looking at, what objects, they don't know what landmass. They don't understand what documents I've looked at, like the Niger really being the Euphrates, stuff like that. So some of y'all not going to get it because y'all drive-bys, okay? Now, those who really want to know, they go back and look at the evidence. So we got a playlist. We have a playlist you can look at where the real Jerusalem is. But it's not in sequential order of, when we did it. So if you really want to follow it in sequential order, you could go to the first video I did that started talking about this, which was the Pan-African video. And if you follow the Pan-African video, at the end of each video, there's a card. And you can follow it to the next discussion. That way you can be in sequence with how we reached, or at least how I have reached my conclusion. All right. So what we're going to do right now is look at a video I did and just part of it. It's called Jerusalem in the Mountains. And in that particular video, I talk about the letter of Eritreus. Now, that letter was from the king of Egypt, who was a Greek, part of the Ptolemy Empire. And he sent one of his people to Jerusalem to watch the sacrifices. And, if you haven't watched it, you can go and watch the whole thing. But basically, he discussed what the land mass looked like, what the layout looked like. And we're going to get into some of that. And there's some things I'm a basically, do a drive-by myself on because we've talked about it in the past. So I might make mention and move on. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you got to go back and watch the other videos. All right, so this is from my video called Jerusalem in the Mountains. Remember that. Other mountain torrents, as they are called, flow down into the plain and encompass the parts about Gaza and the district of Ashdod. The country is encircled by a natural fence and is very difficult to attack and cannot be assailed by large forces. Listen to this, family. Listen to what he's saying. The country is encircled by a natural fence. Is the modern Jerusalem encircled by a natural fence? Yes or no? The country is encircled by a natural fence and is very difficult to attack and cannot be assailed by large forces. So see why the Romans, if you go read Josephus, and he talks about how the Romans encamped around them and basically kept them caged in so they can starve to death, because it cannot what? Be assailed by large forces, owing to the narrow what? Passes. Listen to that. Owing to the narrow passes with their overhanging precipices and deep ravines, and the rugged character of the mountainous regions which surround all the land. Listen to that, family. Does that sound like modern Israel? Does that sound like modern Jerusalem to you? Yes or no? All right, so does that sound like modern Jerusalem to you? No, it doesn't. See, the true location is in Ethiopia. And I'm going to show you why I believe that. Now, like I say, you don't have to agree with me. Some of y'all think the United States is our land. I'm not even arguing with you on that because I can't deal with foolishness. Some of y'all think we from the Americas. I'm not dealing with you on that. I can't deal with foolishness. All right, so we're going to move on. So one thing we saw is that Jerusalem was in the mountains. The temple was in the mountains. It was a defensible place with natural barriers. What were those natural barriers? Those natural barriers were the mountains themselves. The Bible itself says that Jerusalem is surrounded by mountains. We cover that. So Yakoba, why do you think that it is Ethiopia? We're gonna see. All right. Let me put this link in there. I'm sort of bad sometimes lately of putting them references in there. Thank you, brother Arthur, for the gift. So y'all can follow this link here. This is what I'm referencing right now. Okay. All right. It says, one sec. All right. It says Ethiopia secured its independence at the Battle of Adwa in 1896, and we're going to talk about that. Emperor Menelik II led his troops to victory over a powerful Italian expeditionary force. One of the traditionally popular explanations for Ethiopian independence is geography. Ethiopia, while prosperous, is a rough country for foreigners. The deserts of Somalia and the far borders and the swamps of the Sobat River protect the highlands from all sides. And Ethiopia proper is among the most mountainous regions in Africa. The land gives defending armies a significant advantage, making it difficult for foreign armies to submit the country. Geography played an important role in the Battle of Ottawa itself, where the rough terrain limited Italy's ability to deploy its troops and use its superior technology. This is the same thing we heard about when Rome attacked. It's the same thing for the Battle of Ottawa. All right. It's what I just read from my previous show, Jerusalem in the Mountains, is what I read from the previous show about it being a highly defensible area with natural boundaries, which are those mountains. Okay. All right. So it's all of the attributes I've been looking for. I've been looking for a area that's close to Egypt, because Ptolemy sent someone there to check out the sacrifices and everything. We know that Yeshua and his family ran to Egypt. We know that that's where the Israelites would always run to. It couldn't have been too far. And I know there's a whole bunch of other questions, and we're going to get into some of them, and we're not going to get into all of them. All right. So it has a natural barrier. A natural barrier. All right, so let's look at this. Let me take care of this right quick. All right, so let's look at this particular video.
No nation can be talked about without looking up what makes the land. Sitting on the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia is mostly made up by the Ethiopian highlands. These mountains make up most of the interior of the country, and the edges provide a natural border for the western and southern sides. On the east side, though, is a more stereotyped Ethiopia: plains, savanna, and desert. Some of the highlands and plateau drop smoothly into the East Sudanian savanna, but much of it is a sharp escarpment, cliffs which separate the mountains from the desert. Now, in pretty much any other country on Earth, the way borders work is by having the mountains and rivers on the outside to protect the country, with the flat, farmable land on the inside to feed the population centers. Ethiopia flips this around. The flatter, easier to live in land are on the outskirts, with the mountainous, harder to live in land on the inside. But besides the expected invasion or two from the flat exterior, this is an excellent geography for keeping the Ethiopians thriving. Look at the satellite map of Ethiopia. The land, which rises about 2 kilometers off the ground, is much, much greener than the outskirts of the nation. In fact, it's a lot greener than the rest of East Africa too, and it all has to do with H2O.
All right, so we have this green area that's in the mountains where they build their cities and their cultures and everything in the mountains, and it's highly defensible. Okay, so one of the things I saw, someone asked the question, what about the Queen of Sheba coming from Ethiopia and stuff like that? You have to change your thinking. You have to reevaluate what you know as history. Why? Because there are scholars that teach that the Queen of Sheba did not come from Ethiopia per se, right? Because if you look at our previous videos and teachings about our history in the African continent, you will know that the whole African continent was called Ethiopia at one time. So she was supposed to be a Cushitic queen, but some say she was a descendant also of Shem. Which is it? Now, there seems to be some evidence that the Queen of Sheba was from the area of the Sudan, over there by Meroe, where you see those pyramids. We talked about some of this in some of our other videos about that area. But like I said, I don't want to digress, but what I want to do is show my video again, because what did you see here about the geography? It was highly defensible. It was up in the mountain. It was surrounded by all of these highly defensible places. It was hard to attack. That is how Jerusalem has always been known, which is why the Romans tried to starve them out, because they couldn't assail the city. But let me show this one more time so you understand that I'm comparing to the letter of Eritreus. Remember that. Other mountain torrents, as they are called, flow down into the plain and encompass the parts about Gaza and the district of Ashdod. The country is encircled by a natural fence and is very difficult to attack and cannot be assailed by large forces. Listen to this, family. Listen to what he's saying. The country is encircled by a natural fence. Is the modern Jerusalem encircled by a natural fence? Yes or no? The country is encircled by a natural fence and is very difficult to attack and cannot be assailed by large forces. So see why the Romans, if you go read Josephus, and he talks about how the Romans encamped around them and basically kept them caged in so they can starve to death, because it cannot what? Be assailed by large forces, owing to the narrow what? Passes. Listen to that. Owing to the narrow passes with their overhanging precipices and deep ravines, and the rugged character of the mountainous regions which surround all the land. Listen to that, family. Does that sound like modern Israel? Does that sound like modern Jerusalem to you? Yes or no? Okay, so we saw the geography of Ethiopia, the video I showed, right, previous to this one, just re-showing. I also shared with you the document from the Bowling Green State University about the independence of Ethiopia and Liberia. And it talked about how, because of that natural barrier that exists in Ethiopia, Ethiopia is difficult to conquer. Even when the Italians went in, right, the first time they failed. The second time they only held it for 5 years. All right. So let's look at another part of that video. We're going to see about the water access, right? Because if you read the rest of the letter of Eritreus, right, it talks about how they had the rivers coming in, flowing from the hills, right, or the mountains, and going down into the streams and out into the sea. It also talked about how we have these, access to different river systems, right? So let's look at that right quick.
2.0. Many rivers of the region spawn in these highlands, flowing down to lower lands. The Awash, Shabelle, Juba, Baro, and oh yeah, the Nile River. You may have heard of that one. Lakes like Lake Abaya, Ziwe, and Tana also scatter the region's holy nature, filling up with pools of water. This has transformed Ethiopia's center into a green escape in the middle of the desert, and it's here where the ancient peoples of Ethiopia made their civilization. Look at the population density map of Ethiopia compared to its geography. Almost all Ethiopians live in the mountains. It's here where they can survive, drink water, farm food, make cities, culture, civilization, and as an added bonus, you can prevent invasions pretty easily when you live on top of a mountain. Maybe geography didn't let attacking be their strong suit, but the Ethiopians have defended for thousands of years. They ought to have it figured out by now. No one will be able to push them out of these mountains. Almost all major cities were built in the plateaus and valleys of the highlands, and it's exactly why the Ethiopians are an ancient group of people. They are defined by the cool green mountains, which literally save them from the rest of the region. But just
plateaus and valleys. Plateaus and valleys, what? Highly defensible. Save them from being invaded. They will be protected forever. That's what he said. Does that not read like what we read over there in the letter of Eritreus? And if you haven't read it, go read it. I have the link in my other videos. Now, I'm going to show you what I believe the land of Israel really was. I believe that the area right now in what we call modern Ethiopia is part of where Jerusalem was, Samaria, Gaza, those type of places, I believe were right there in the area in modern day Ethiopia. So we've already talked about Axum. We talk about the Demat empires. We've talked about the Jewish empire all before this. That's why I say if you are late to the game, you need to go back and watch it, because a lot of stuff you're talking about, we covered. A lot of stuff you're talking about, we covered. Understand. Well, let me share this. I wasn't going to share this right away, but I'll just share it right now just to make a point. Okay. Let me share this link too, just for you all. I get a little lazy sometimes. All right. From the 7th century BCE up until 330 AD, Judaism was the official state religion of Ethiopia. You have to be careful with this statement, because modern Ethiopia wasn't Ethiopia. The continent of Africa was Ethiopia. But they're saying from the 7th century BCE up until 330 AD, Judaism was the official state religion of Ethiopia. That's not a fully truthful statement. But the point being made is that the religion was Judaism, even beginning from the 7th century BCE, before the Common Era. Understand what that means. That means that there were Jews there before there were Christians. Jews have always been in that area. If you go and watch my old videos dealing with this, you will see that Judaism has always been in that area. That's the same area that Eldad the Danite came from. That is the same area where I showed you in my other videos that they have the tools of the temples, not just the Ark of the Covenant. I showed you the tools of the temple. So now we have the defensible geographic locations as well as spoken of historically, which lines up with what we see in the Bible concerning the mountains of Israel. So let me show you where I believe Israel, as we think in modern terms, right? We think in terms of a nation state. No, the truth of the matter is that Israel is a people. And wherever the people were is where Israel was located. Okay? All right. So this is where I believe Israel was located. See all of this green area here? It's called Ethiopia, all the way here, going all the way over here to the end of the West Coast. Areas that include Negro land, an area which is identical to the Haggadah map that we discussed. This is called Nigraterium. The Negro lands, it was called Ethiopia. So what we would have called Negro land all the way over here to modern Ethiopia, and including some areas of Kenya and Tanzania, and all the way down here to parts of South Africa, is Israel, because that is where the people lived. Israel is synonymous with where the people were located. This whole green area is Israel. That's my contention. Jerusalem is in what we call modern Ethiopia in the mountains. All right, so let's continue. So we saw the water, we have the river systems, everything you would expect from what we saw in the letter of Eritreus. What else do we need?
The middle of all of it. The Somali plate isn't so much of a plate, but rather a crack that didn't finish cracking, and today grinds across the African plate horizontally in what is called a transform motion.
This essentially splits the country into two portions, the western and eastern Ethiopian highlands, also known as the Ethiopian Plateau and the Mar Mountain.
The Ethiopian highlands are the largest continuous mountain range in Africa, which stretch north to south and comprise a great diversity of terrain depending on the region.
Climate-wise, it basically goes like this. The east is hot and the west is cool.
Oh, that's simple. As mentioned before, the northeast corner by the border of Eritrea contains the Danakil Depression, where you find Dolol, the hottest human settlement on Earth, with average annual temperatures holding around 41 degrees Celsius. Most of this hauntingly beautiful area is uninhabitable, with some areas fuming with toxic gases coming from the boiling geothermal salt ponds.
Nonetheless, people still come here to mine for salt on a regular basis. Oh, and if you...
So let me play that one more time, because I think it went a bit too fast, so you all can see.
The middle of all of it. The Somali plate isn't so much of a plate, but rather a crack that didn't finish cracking, and today grinds across the African plate horizontally in what is called a transform motion.
This essentially splits the country into two portions, the western and eastern Ethiopian highlands, also known as the Ethiopian Plateau and the Mar Mountain.
The Ethiopian highlands are the largest continuous mountain range in Africa, which stretch north to south and comprise a great diversity of terrain depending on the region.
Climate-wise, it basically goes like this. The east is hot and the west is cool.
Oh, that's simple. As mentioned before, the northeast corner by the border of Eritrea contains the Danakil Depression, where you find Dolol, the hottest human settlement on Earth.
So why did I show that again? I wanted you to pay careful attention to the fact that we got the Danakil, which is what? A salt plateau, a salt area like the Dead Sea. Okay, they harvest salt from the Danakil. That's what some of you all be looking for. Well, where's the Dead Sea? Where's the Dead Sea? There's the Dead Sea, the Danakil. What else do we have there? We have the plateaus, we have the valleys, we have the water system that we see in the letter Eritreas. This area fits perfectly that letter, perfectly. Not only does it fit that area perfectly, that area has a history of continuous occupation by Jews who practice Judaism until they converted to Christianity. Some scholars say that is where the first Christians were. In the Bible tells us that the first Christians was where? In Jerusalem. Come on now. You ain't got to agree with me, but here's the thing. There is no other place on this planet that fits the biblical description of Jerusalem surrounded by mountains, being hard to access or, access through military means. There's no other place on the planet that has a history of Jews. What else did we see in one of the other videos? I know some of y'all missed it. I'm not going to go play it again because I played these videos twice. You will see that in the area, well, I got one more. Let me do that. But in one of the videos, you would have seen that there was over 40-something different languages and groups of people in the area we call Ethiopia. You're going to see in this other video, the last one I'm going to show, is that there are, they say, 80 different groups. Remember, I told you when Israel went in to conquer the land. Thank you for the gift, watching and waiting. When Israel went in to conquer the land, it wasn't just the 12 tribes. That little stretch of land in the Middle East couldn't hold the 12 tribes, let alone the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Girgashites, the Phoenicians, everybody who came in there wanted to cause trouble. All these different groups, and you gotta think in terms of the thousands now. You have to think in terms of the thousands occupying that area. So what I'm saying is this: I believe in the mountains, that's Jerusalem. I believe some of the surrounding areas in the lower valley areas are like Samaria, Gaza, things like that. So when I say Jerusalem, I'm talking the Jerusalem territory we see in the Bible, which include Samaria, which included Gaza, and some of these other places. I believe Jerusalem was, like the Bible said, in the mountains, surrounded by mountains. And it just so happens that these mountains in Ethiopia are what? Thank you, Brother Robert, for the gift. These mountains in Ethiopia has access to water. It has green land, green areas where you can grow your foodstuffs. You can live there as a people, as we see today. Now, let me share this other video right quick.
Probably be Egypt, Djibouti, and to a lesser extent maybe Sudan. Egypt shares an ancient history with Ethiopia for thousands of years, and the Nile Basin plays a major role in their cooperation. Djibouti is kind of like their only way out to the Red Sea, and business between them is crucial for Ethiopia's trade sector. Sudan is kind of like a major oil provider and gateway to the Mediterranean for them. Despite the border conflict, they still have relatively good relationships. In conclusion,
so we see that Ethiopia, that's what they call it. It used to be called Axum. It used to be called Demat. It used to be a Jewish kingdom. Always had relations with Egypt. Now, that's what we expect. That's what we see in the Bible. That's what we see historically. Now, we also see in that little clip that I showed you is that Ethiopia, modern day, has a relationship with Djibouti. Why? Because Djibouti is an area that was taken over by Islam. My contention is that in the ancient days, and we saw it on that map that I showed you, Maybe I should show it to you one more time. This area, which is in green, included all the way to the Red Sea, which is the area today we call Djibouti. My contention is that the area near Djibouti, or the area over by Eritrea, because they both have access to the seaports on Red Sea, is the Sea of Galilee. That the Sea of Galilee is a literal sea. Okay? So my point is that access from Ethiopia all the way down to Djibouti was the Sea of Galilee. Now, as we move on, and this is from a preponderance of the evidence, right? A preponderance of the evidence. And some of this you all saw in other videos. Like I said, don't make a decision without watching the other videos. Some of y'all gonna make a decision because you're already brainwashed, but let's move on. All right, so we talked about this in one of the oldest shows, right? Lalibela is second Jerusalem for Ethiopia's Christians. That's what they call it. Second Jerusalem for Ethiopia's Christians. My contention is that this is the true Jerusalem. Thank you for the gift, Brother Wade. My contention is that this is the real Jerusalem, not the second Jerusalem. Understand that when Emperor Hadrian came in, he wanted to hide from us where the true Jerusalem was located. How do you hide an area that not only was sacred to the Jews, it was sacred to all other nations? Other nations made pilgrimages to Jerusalem. How do you hide some place that had a holy presence according to the Bible? How do you hide a place where people would make pilgrimages there to go to the Passover and sacrifice their offerings? How do you hide a place like that? How could a place that not only had to take care of and house Israelites, but they had to house and take care of the foreigners when they came? Modern Middle East, Jerusalem can't do it. It don't have enough land. It don't have enough water. It don't have enough agricultural place to grow food. We talked about that in other videos. How do you remove from their minds a holy place where people had to come for each one of the feasts? People still come to Ethiopia for Jewish festivals with Christian names. You cannot hide the true Jerusalem in reality. You hide it in your mind. You hide it in the books. You hide it in the maps. But when you start doing the research, you start looking at what the Bible says Jerusalem looks like. When you start looking at the history of this area and knowing that Jews has been there since the time of Christ, how in the heck can you say they migrated there later? Jews been in this area since the time of Christ. I'm telling you, this is Jerusalem. All right, so let's continue. The Battle of Adwa. The Battle of Adwa, or Battaglia di Adua, also spelled Adowa, was the climatic battle of the First Italo-Ethiopian War. The Ethiopian forces defeated the Italian invading force on Sunday, March 1st, 1896, near the town of Adwa. The decisive victory thwarted the campaign of the Kingdom of Italy to expand its colonial empire in the Horn of Africa. By the end of the 19th century, European powers had carved up almost all of Africa after the Berlin Conference. Only Ethiopia and Liberia still maintained their independence. Adwa became a preeminent symbol of Pan-Africanism and secured Ethiopian sovereignty until the Second Italo-Ethiopian War 40 years later. So why couldn't they take Ethiopia from the quote unquote Ethiopians? Really, back then, they would have been the Abyssinians. Why couldn't they take Ethiopia from the Abyssinians, or that land from the Abyssinians? Because of the highly defensive nature of those mountains, as we saw in those other videos. Now, understand this. Use your thinking cap. So at the Berlin Conference, all the Western nations, which are descendants of the Roman Empire, said, we're going to split up the land. We're going to split up Africa. Germany going to take Angola. I think it was Germany, was it Berlin? I think Berlin took Angola and so forth and so on, right? I think Germany took Namibia and all that stuff. So they're going to split up this land, and they're going to give it to each one of their, I'm trying to be nice here, colonizing friends. So they give it to their colonizing friends, the land that the Bible said, that God said, they divided my land. The Berlin Conference, they divided his land. Now, here's where I'm going with it. Thank you, 78 Vet, for the gift. Here's where I'm going. So the Bible said they divided my land. We have evidence that Berlin Conference divided Africa. But it just so happens that the Italians, which is the heart of the Roman Empire, which is the heart of Roman Catholicism, who said they can go and conquer all of the Saracens and all the unbelievers and all this stuff, who persecuted the Jews, the black Jews, right? We know the whole story of Portugal and Spain and all this stuff, right? We know the whole story, yep. And so they all decided that they're going to divide up everything. But Italy wanted Ethiopia. Rome wanted Ethiopia. Rome, back in 70 AD, tried to conquer and take over Jerusalem. It's just a coincidence that Italy, aka Rome, wanted to come and take Ethiopia. Why didn't the Italians go after Namibia? Why didn't the Italians go after Angola? Thank you, JSBS, for the gift. They went after Jerusalem because they couldn't hold it. It's highly defensible. So let's look right quick at the Second Italo-Ethiopian War. The Second Italo-Ethiopian War, also referred to as the Second Italo-Abyssinian War, was a war of aggression, which was fought between Italy and Ethiopia from October 1935 to February 1937. In Ethiopia, it is often referred to simply as the Italian invasion, and in Italy as the Ethiopian War. It is seen as an example of the expansionist policy that characterized the Axis powers and the ineffectiveness of the League of Nations before the outbreak of the Second World War. On October 3rd, 1935, 200,000 soldiers of the Italian army commanded by Marshal Emilio de Bono attacked from Eritrea without prior declaration of war. At the same time, a minor force under General Rodolfo Graziani attacked from Italian Somalia. On October 6th, Adwa was conquered, a symbolic place for the Italian army because of the defeat at the Battle of Adwa by the Ethiopian army during the First Italo-Ethiopian War. On October 15, Italian troops seized Axum, and an obelisk adorning the city was torn from its site and sent where? To Rome, to be placed symbolically in front of the building of the Ministry of Colonies created by the fascist regime. Exasperated by de Bono's slow and cautious progress, Italian Prime Minister Benito Mussolini put General Pietro Badoglio in his place. Ethiopian forces attacked newly arrived invading army and launched a counterattack in December 1935. But their poorly armed forces could not resist for long against the modern weapons of the Italians. Even the communication service of the Ethiopian forces depended on foot messengers as they did not have radio. Thank you for the gift, Naaman. This was enough for the Italians to impose a narrow fence on Ethiopian detachments to leave them unaware of the movements of their own army. Nazi Germany sent arms and munitions to Ethiopia because it was frustrated over Italian objections to its policy towards Austria. This prolonged the war and diverted Italian attention away from Austria. The Ethiopian counteroffensive managed to stop the Italian advance for a few weeks, but the superiority of the Italians' weapons prevented the Ethiopians from taking advantage of their initial successes. The Italians resumed the offensive in March, on March 29, 1936. Graziani bombed the city of Harar, and 2 days later, the Italians won a decisive battle in the Battle of Machu, which nullified any possible organized resistance of the Ethiopians. Emperor Haile Selassie was forced to escape into exile May 2nd, and Badoglio's forces arrived in the capital Addis Ababa on May 5th. Italy announced the annexation of the territory of Ethiopia on May 7th. An Italian king, Victor Emmanuel, was proclaimed emperor. The provinces of Eritrea, Italian Somaliland, and Abyssinia, Ethiopia, were united to form the Italian province of East Africa. Fighting between Italian and Ethiopian troops persisted until February 1937. Italian forces continued to suppress the rebel activity until 1939. War crimes were committed by both sides in the conflict. Italian troops used mustard gas and aerial bombardments in violation of Geneva Convention against combatants and civilians in an attempt to discourage the Ethiopian people from supporting the resistance. Deliberate Italian attacks against ambulances and hospitals of the Red Cross were reported. By all estimates, hundreds of thousands of Ethiopians died as a result of the invasion, including during the reprisal of Yekit. 12 massacres in Addis Ababa, in which, according to Ethiopian sources, as many as 30,000 were killed. Such brutal and massive Italian reprisals against Ethiopians have been described by some historians as constituting genocide. Well, we know that. That's all they do when they come. All right, so long story short, after World War II, Ethiopia got their land back. Italians got kicked out. Thing is, it's very difficult to assault Ethiopia and maintain control. Now, let's continue. Just some things I've seen. All right. So, where is it? There we go. Okay. So here's an area called Wolfwasha Forest in the Amhara region of Ethiopia. Wolfwasha Natural Forest is Ethiopia's oldest proclaimed state forest and is rich in biodiversity. This is in the mountains. It is considered the most threatened forest ecosystem in the Amhara region. The forest is an integral part of the local people's livelihoods and economy. It's a part of their livelihood and economy. All right. Wolfwasha, a land of milk and honey and much more. Wolfwasha, meaning bird cave forest, blankets over 6,000 hectares of the Rift Valley escarpment with natural forest, a mere 130 kilometers northeast from Addis Ababa. This forest extends from Anakober, seat of Menelik, former palace, towards Debri Sina, at the highest levels around 3,500 meters above sea level. The forest consists of Afro-alpine vegetation, of giant lolibella, thank you for the gift, Methuselah, and giant heather trees, Erica arboreal. As you go lower, increasingly there are massive juniper, African olive, keep that in mind, African olive and pondocarpus trees. Some of these trees are over 500 years old. I've never seen such large olive trees. There are many other species too, but I'm no expert. I saw Hygienia and the yellow-flowered hypericum in the forest, but there was much I didn't recognize. My emphasis here is on the African olive trees. The Bible says that there was a place in Jerusalem called the Mount of Olives. Now, they want to tell us today the Mount of Olives in the Middle East is this little hill where you could, if you wanted to, grow an olive tree. Where you could grow an olive tree. All right, so now this is a site where they get olives from that area. We provide high quality Ethiopian African olives to the local and export market. We source the raw, fresh Ethiopian African olives from family growers in Ethiopia. African olive, Olea europea africana, differs from its European or South Mediterranean counterparts from its invasive growth, sometimes as weed. This is why it does well in both its native subtropical climates, like in Ethiopia, and temperate regions like Australia. In Ethiopia, it grows in Afro-Montane belt, which describes the forested and animal rearing areas that extend from Ethiopia to across the southern parts of the Arabian Peninsula. This is usually around Eastern European dry lands. Okay. So we have a place in the mountains, and it's in the mountain. It's an area where they build civilizations and they live. It's surrounded by mountains. They have olive trees. They have a Dead Sea called the Danalil. They have rivers in the mountain that goes down, and they have the crevices and all these things. Everything we see in the letter of Ethiopia, we see the Mount of Olives. Now, they want me to believe that little place over there in the Middle East, on that little hill that they call the Mount of Olives, that they call it the Mount of Olives for some unknown reason, because they could, from what I read, because they could grow an olive tree on it. But yet we have a place that has a bunch of olive trees on it in the hills, in the mountain, where a bunch of Jews used to live, right? And they still do. They just Christians now, a lot of them. Some still Jews. We have the Mount of Olives here, in my opinion. A place full of olive trees. I've showed you in previous videos where they have sheep and all that stuff over there in Ethiopia. Everything you would expect to find to be Jerusalem is there. Afro-Montane, African mountain. Afro-Montane, African mountain. The Afro-Montane regions are subregions of the Afrotropical realm, one of the Earth's 8 biogeographic realms, covering the plant and animal species found in the mountains of Africa and the southern Arabian Peninsula. The Afro-Montane regions of Africa are discontinuous, separated from each other by lower lying areas, and are sometimes referred to as Afro-Montane archipelago, as their distribution is analogous to a series of sky islands. Afro-Montane communities occur above 1,500 to 2,000 meters elevations near the equator, and as low as 300-meter elevations in the Kenisana Amatol Montane forest of South Africa. It goes all the way to South Africa. Afro-Montane forests are generally cooler and more humid than the surrounding lowlands. The Afro-Montane archipelago mostly follows the East African Rift from the Red Sea to Zimbabwe, with the largest areas in the Ethiopian highlands, the Albertine Rift Mountains of Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Tanzania, and the Eastern Arc Highlands of Kenya. I just want to know, Where are the Jews at? Where the Bantu tribes at? I just want to know. Other Afro-Montane regions include the Drakensberg. That's over there in South Africa. The Cameroon Highlands and the Cameroon Line volcanoes, including Mount Cameroon, Biako, and Sao Tome. Come on. Why do you think the U.S. won Ethiopia? Why do you think the U.S. is causing trouble in Africa right now? Why do you think the U.S. is sending counter forces in it to support rebel factions between Ethiopia and Eritrea? Why do you think all of this is happening? Because it's time for the Israelites to return. The Bible says we're going to first go back into the wilderness of the people and back to Jerusalem. So this is my opinion. You don't have to agree. I know as a fact, many of you all may not agree because you haven't done your research. Why? Because you think America is our home. Why? Because y'all got problems with Africans. Why? Because you nuttier than a fruitcake, some of y'all. Why? Because y'all even reject the Messiah. Some of y'all. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Some of y'all caught up in so much deception it boggles the mind. And when you're given evidence, not saying you have to agree with me, but you don't even look at it. So I'm going to show this one video again, the geography of Ethiopia. And I'm going to show the map after that so you can get a better understanding, even though this will be the third time I show this video. All right.
No nation can be talked about without looking up what makes the land. Sitting on the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia is mostly made up by the Ethiopian highlands. These mountains make up most of the interior of the country, and the edges provide a natural border for the western and southern sides. On the east side, though, is a more stereotyped Ethiopia: plains, savanna, and desert. Some of the highlands and plateau drop smoothly into the East Sudanian savanna, but much of it is a sharp escarpment, cliffs which separate the mountains from the desert. Now, in pretty much any other country on Earth, the way borders work is by having the mountains and rivers on the outside to protect the country, with the flat, farmable land on the inside to feed the population centers. Ethiopia flips this around. The flatter, easier to live in land are on the outskirts, with the mountainous, harder to live in land on the inside. But besides the expected invasion or two from the flat exterior, this is an excellent geography for keeping the Ethiopians thriving. Look at the satellite map of Ethiopia. The land, which rises about 2 kilometers off the ground, is much, much greener than the outskirts of the nation. In fact, it's a lot greener than the rest of East Africa too, and it all has to do with H2O.
So, I don't know what else I have to say. I mean, to me, it's enough evidence for me. And as I said, to make my point, and I'm going to end, all of this area right here in modern Ethiopia, Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya, all the way to the West Coast on that area called Negro Land. That's Israel. Jerusalem is over here in Ethiopia. That's my belief, and I'm sticking to it. I want to thank you all who support this ministry, patrons. I want to thank you all for supporting us. I want to thank the Cash App givers. I want to thank the Super Chat givers. Really appreciate the support. Now, my belief is just a gut feeling, because all these things are being exposed and revealed. I believe the Exodus is near. I've always felt it was near. I don't think we can make it if it's not near. Peace and blessings, Israel. Your captivity is ending. Love you with the love of the Messiah. Also, family, please make sure you support our Dry Bones Project.